welcome to the Red River Valley of North Dakota. A land flowing with milk and honey. You're watching Beet Farmin Mitch. Look at this little path. Paths through the snow. Well, I think it's still winter, that's for sure. So it's 0 degrees out right now, and it is March 30th today, so it is pretty cold and pretty snowy for March 30th. We've been in the field in March before. A little bit different story this year, but every year is different, I guess. Planting times this year are definitely going to be a little later. Thinking April's pretty much out of the question. Hopefully beginning of May, but I mean, you know, 1 week at a time, it's hard to say what the weather's gonna do. The 10-day, it looks like it's still gonna be pretty cold. It's important for us to get into the field as soon as possible. Crops have different growing seasons, and a couple of the crops we try plant first, right? So our first crops that we try to plant in on our farm are hard red spring wheat, sugar beets, and corn. Those are typically our first three, and then when we get to the beans, we get to the beans. Those you can plant a little later, because you definitely want to maximize the growing season, especially when it comes to sugar beets and corn. I mean, the windows get tight. If you get the beets in earlier, typically a better crop. Corn, you want that in early so you can get it to dry down faster. And then wheat is actually a cool season crop, so you don't want to plant wheat when it's very hot and sunny out, because it does not like that. So speaking of corn, that is what we've got in this bin here. Down to the infamous bottom of the bin. So I've already got the truck loaded, just kind of letting the engine warm up for a little bit. So these are actually pretty high-tech bins. There's this auger here that when you get to the bottom of the bin, it'll spin around. Basically, there's a hole here and there's a couple holes here, and you can crank those open out there, and there's an auger out there that turns on, that runs under the ground here, or under the bin floor, I should say. If you lift it up, you can pull it all the way back and drop it right there, and it'll clean a lot more of this out. You still gotta do some shoveling and sweeping, but you just push it right down the hole in the floor in the middle, and so that's pretty nice to have some high-tech bins. So I was kind of put on the grain hauling crew, but my brothers, they've been hard at the work in the shop. We have a row planter. We're pretty much completely rebuilding this year. New sprockets, new chains, and there's some like seed sensor stuff they're rebuilding on it, putting new seed sensors and seed tubes on it. So kind of a lot of work for that, pretty intense. So they've been kind of hammering hard on there. I've been kind of in and out of there when I've been doing kind of the grain stuff. So that's what we got going on right now, getting ready for planting, and it's not super close, unfortunately. I'm excited. I've been pretty fired up and anxious. Last year this time I was planning a wedding, so I didn't mind the free time, but this year it's still pretty cold and snowy for end of March. But that's life, that's the weather. You just gotta adjust and have a plan and plan accordingly. Truck's been warming up for a little bit now, so let's hit the road. All right, let's see if we got any frozen brakes. A little bit. Throw the diff lock on. Here we go. This truck's got engine brake on the steering wheel, so I like that. Speaking of Jake brakes, I was in my house this morning and Jenny was getting ready or whatever, and all of a sudden I hear me and Jake brake, and I was like, Jenny, that's a Jake brake. She's like, what? She knew what it was. We got a bit of a drive here. It's about a 45-minute drive, so one way. The skyscrapers of the prairie. We made it. I'm gonna get on tarps here, and then I'm gonna go under this grain probe thing. They'll take a sample and we'll dump our corn. And don't forget to put your box down inside of here, because you might get in big trouble if you try to drive out with it up. Rip the overhead door off. Don't think the elevator would like that too much. So speaking of elevators, I am unloading at a grain elevator, and so a lot of times what happens is farmers sell their grain that they grow to elevators, and then elevators will then kind of take a cut and kind of redistribute the grain and sell it to buyers and kind of move it up the production chain a little bit. So they're kind of the first step in the production chain after farmers, generally. By and large, that's how it works. Farmers sell their grain to grain elevators. And that's the thing about grain elevators, is typically they can ship and sell grain a lot more efficiently than farmers, because they can use rail cars, and trains are just way more efficient at moving goods and commodities than trucking. So works out when you're by a rail. And we made her back to the bins. So step number one in firing up the bin, you always start this last auger first, because if you start the first one, it's gonna jam up right there. So you don't want that. So this auger here is underneath the bin floor. There's a hole in the middle. That auger spins around the bin, pulls it through there. Pretty simple design, but it saves a lot of having to shovel and stuff, so that's nice. Quite the view up here. So part of the reason we run these end dump trailers is because we grow sugar beets. So it's nice because we can haul all our crops with this, whether it's sugar beets, corn, wheat, you name it. So when you empty grains, you just use this grain chute here. And then for beets, the whole back end gate swings open. We do have a lot of potatoes that grow in our area. My family does not personally grow potatoes, but you wouldn't use potatoes in a trailer like this. You would have something called like a live bottom. It's basically a conveyor, because when you're growing potatoes, you don't want them to get bruised up, whether they're getting made into potato chips or sold whole, raw potatoes, or french fries, whatever it may be. You don't want mashed potatoes before it's time for them to be potatoes. There's my little potato lesson. So those little red things, they're called bees wings, and they get all over the place. I brought a secret weapon. Let's see how that thing works. Waiting in line at the elevator, you know what that means. It's snack time. These are handy little buggers. So when you sell grain at the elevator, it kind of boils down to two main areas. You got quality and you got quantity. So quantity would be how many bushels or pounds of the grain or commodity you haul in. And then the quality, it varies based on crop per crop. But corn, you have test weight, moisture, and FM or foreign material or dockage. Could be kind of referred to as all of those. Well, we're getting there. I got the secret weapon, but it looks like my brothers beat me to it. I think Jason must have brought his, so we got dual action leaf blowers. Well, we got the whole family on board emptying out the bin today. My uncle and brothers are inside sweeping it out. My dad and I are hauling. We're gonna watch the auger so it doesn't back up on me. This will be my last load, and my dad's coming up behind me, so we'll get this bin cleaned out and swept up and ready for harvest. Never gets old. I love that noise. Well, I successfully made it back to the farm here, and part of my GoPro broke, so I think I gotta fix that. Some little clip fell out the bottom. I have a GoPro Hero 9, works great, love it. It has voice controls, which I really like, and it can do time lapse and regular videos and pictures. I never really take pictures with it, but anywho, yeah, some Torx bit screws fell out, so I think we got another little project there. So we're done hauling corn now, kind of just waiting on spring, doing what we can, trying to be ready with equipment and different things like that, but until then we just, you know, keep going forward. Listen to some good podcasts today. So I like to well, a lot of the podcasts I listen to, I mean, music gets old, I should say. I should start with that. Music in the tractor or truck all day, that can get old. So to be able to listen to some podcasts here or there, that's nice. 3 of my favorite podcasts are Bible Project, 10-Minute Bible Hour, and The Remnant. So I was listening to The Remnant today. They had some good thought-provoking stuff. I always like to, I have listened to audiobooks before too. But anyway, it's fun to listen to stuff like that, kind of help expand the mind a little bit while doing mindless tasks. So it works out. So I had to set my GoPro on the dashboard because the clip fell out. Kind of weird. These tiny little screws rattled out of here. It's gonna be a delicate process. We got some thread locker, and the screws are so small. Little Torx ones, I don't have the right size. So we're gonna make it work with the mini Phillips. you know, I might be better off putting a dab in. So that might be overkill. There you go. Farming teaches you how to fix stuff. Because the last thing I want is for this thing to get sucked through the beet lifter after a day of filming. Because if those screws fall out and this thing falls off, no bueno. So we got one of our row planters in the shop here. So I've been hauling grain, and my brothers, Casey and Jason, they've been busy doing lots of hardcore in-depth projects on this. They're kind of the planter wizards. So they've been working on here. I think they've been replacing liquid fertilizer lines, and there's been a lot. But it's Friday. We're gonna call that a week. Might swing by the beet piler on the way home here. We'll see. I know they're getting close with hauling out the rest of the beets in a piling site by us, so we'll see how they're coming along. So there's plenty of snow here, and it is March 31st. It's gonna be April 1st tomorrow, and we're slated to get another foot of snow next week. And that's no April Fool's joke. We do live in a river valley, and as you can see, it's pretty flat here. We do have some moderate to severe flooding pretty frequently, so I'm thinking it's gonna be some pretty severe flooding, especially with more snow coming. You know, it all depends on the weather, and there's so many factors with that, but we'll see. Hopefully we're in the field before too long. But anyway, let's make our way to the beet piler. Well, you see that tiny little pile of sugar beets over there? That's all that's left. This, of course, is not sugar. This is snow. We got plenty of it. Anyway, this is Beet Farmin Mitch. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to keep it sweet.